Okay. Did you do any of the minutes?
No.
Oh,
You
you
can
couldn't
open the
because it
meeting.
was just me.
No, you're not here.
Okay.
Now
It was
you
just
are.
you. All right, so we have meeting minutes from the 31st and the 2nd. No, 7th.
No, March 31st and April 7th.
That's what I said.
Yeah, oh, you did?
No.
I wasn't paying attention.
All right.
It's not my job.
Did you have a chance to read them over to you?
Yes, I did. I find them acceptable.
All right, you want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of March 31st and April 7th as read.
Second? All in favor?
I,
You need a pen?
can't catch up now.
Oh, yeah. All right. Audience participation, public comment? Come on down.
Hi, I'm Paul Gershka. I live at 16 Field Lane Road.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, and I just want to point out, about the battery storage.
Yes.
Massachusetts is producing like 24% of its power is coming from solar,
Mhm.
and the battery helps make that more effective. And, we all drive cars or fly in airplanes, so we're using a lot of fossil fuels.
Mhm.
And it's important. Climate change is real. It's affecting us. And I just think whatever we can do to help reduce that demand on fossil fuels and the batteries, I think, are part of that process. And from what I hear from the Conservation
Mhm.
Committee,
Mhm.
they're asking the right questions. And they have resources. I hope their resources are provided to them so that they can get the right answers.
Yeah.
Because no way do we want to have something here that's going to somehow damage our water of all things. It's the
Yeah.
most critical resource that we have here. So it sounds to me like they're asking the right questions. It's going to take a process. And so I hope we'd just be patient enough to get some of those answers and the resources that they need. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your comment. I appreciate it. Okay, all right, we've got highway. I know you were gonna read to us,
Yeah.
Ray emailed something over.
Yeah, Ray is currently at the conservation meeting down the hall, so
Yeah.
he sent me an email with some highway department updates. So this week's report from May 5th to May 12th. Last week, he was monitoring the work that was performed on Maple Lane, working with the Board of Health, making sure the contractor had the materials needed to complete the project for the highway department, replacing the town's culvert, and correcting any issues for the future on Russell State intersection of Maple Lane. The highway department is going to finish the handwork once the Board of Health is completed and gives us the go-ahead. The highway department was working on Hayden Road while the weather was good, defining the ditches and cleaning up the intersection at the triangle of Hayden Road. Rainey and Ray submitted the post report for Gill Engineering, which now grant is closed and all invoicing is completed for the Beach Hill Road grant.
Mhm.
In preparation for the rain, they were expecting to receive at the end of the week. They had the crew cleaning culverts and inspection of inlets and outlets. They were very busy with the rain and they did receive a large amount of water all over town. They
Yeah.
kept up with the problem areas that were arising and executed the best plan to resolve the issues. Some problem roads that were addressed were Gibbs Road, Birch Hill Road, Crooks Road, South Street, North Blandford, which had the most issues with water runoff and drainage. Additionally, he pulled the guys from working on the dirt roads. As of today, all the flags for the telephone poles have been replaced with the new flags and lanyards, and they are being installed throughout the town as of today for the upcoming Memorial Day. With the poor weather conditions heading our way, he didn't want this to be a last minute thing. Thank you, Ray Linte.
Great. Okay, that answers the question about flag. Can I have that
Yeah.
before we even ask? All right. Town administrator, what do you have?
So I have been working to finalize the agenda and the warrant for annual town meeting. I've worked with Jackie on this. There are some submissions from zoning as well as assessors as far as bylaws.
Mhm.
And we've been looking into some other bylaw updates that need to take place. So I've been working on that.
Okay,
I sent the resolution that the board adopted last week to the DPU, the siting board, multiple state official offices, Mass DEP, and Springfield Water Sewer. So it's been sent via email and we sent hard copies in the mail. I spoke at last week, Rudy Kana of 71 Chester Road came in. He wanted to speak to me about the leftover millings at his property that are a result of a water issue that took place
a while ago.
a while ago, yeah. There was some damage that was done to his basement and he had submitted a claim with our insurance. Our insurance did go out and remediate the issues that were in the basement.
Mhm.
But because the swath of millings is considered a right of way, our insurance wasn't going to cover it.
Mhm.
I've spoken briefly with TJ about it. We've seen it and obviously should be remedied. So the board needs to decide which department is gonna take the lead on remedying that
Mhm.
and when it should be done by.
So the millings are on their property?
Partly on their property, partly on the road.
Okay,
It's what they covered the, new pipe with when they replaced the broken pipe in front of their house.
and by they, you mean the water department?
They being the water
And they
department.
were left behind?
And because of the ledge, they couldn't put the pipe 4 feet down.
Uh-huh,
So it's higher than it should be,
okay,
but then they made a berm on the road onto their property.
uh-huh,
And they used, bad soil and it's just all weeds and everything.
okay,
And the grading, they can't mow it, they can't do anything with it.
okay,
And it's not, pitched enough where there's a part of it that's valleyed toward the foundation of their house.
okay, so water.
And that has to be all remedied.
So what would a fix require, do you think?
Well, they're gonna have to take that berm down and put in good soil, you know.
Okay,
And that, they gotta go down at least 6 inches to get a good base and then put, loam on it. And they have to regrade the, pitch of the, slope going onto their lawn because it can't be mowed.
Okay. I mean, it sounds to me like it would be water department.
It's the water department created the
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
Okay.
So then you need to know what department and when.
Yeah, I needed, basically just wanted you guys to make a firm decision on it will be handled by the town and which department will handle it.
Okay. Do you need a motion or?
Yeah, that would be good for the minutes.
What's the address?
71 Chester Road.
So I'd make a motion that the water department will repair the damage, caused to 71 Chester Road, by their.
Second anyways.
By their, that they had caused, just somehow, make note that it was damage caused by the water department, or in the water department repair or whatever. All in favor? Aye. Great, thank you.
Welcome. This week I'll be meeting with PVPC to start the phase 1 of the hazard mitigation plan update process. This has been like going on and on,
Forever,
but
yeah.
It is.
we will be meeting with them on Wednesday. The plumbing upgrade at the post office has been completed as approved by the board, so the spigot was installed.
Okay.
We are waiting on a W-9 from the vendor because it was not submitted. But Joanne has reached out and hopefully he will get that to us quickly.
Okay.
I am scheduled to meet with LePage Landscaping this week to finalize the scope of work and the agreement. And this agreement will run until November. If everybody's happy
Yeah.
with their
Sorry.
LePage, LEPAGE, landscaping.
Oh.
I attended our ADA meeting and we went over what some of the priorities would be when we go to apply for this year's, ADA grant upgrades.
Okay.
I met with Evan George after I met with the ADA committee. He is the grant compliance coordinator for the ADA grants. I had a brief conversation with him about, what makes a favorable application, what can we do to make sure that because we didn't really end on great terms last time with
Mhm.
this grant. We were
Is this
awarded a grant that
Yeah.
we didn't do anything with.
Mhm.
So with that being said, he had said that including quotes for any work that we want done
Okay.
makes for a stronger application. So I have a meeting with Nick Wohlers. He is a contractor who specializes in ADA upgrades. So I've submitted him a copy of the building plans here, and I'll be meeting with him, I believe, on Thursday to go over what we would like to see upgraded and possibly obtain some quotes so that we can submit for the grant.
Great.
Novus, our IT provider, has started implementing some of the security upgrades. An email was sent to all employees, letting them know that there's this new verification process. I then subsequently sent an email to all employees saying,
Yeah.
because the verification process requires you to use your cell phone, if you are not comfortable using your cell phone or cannot for any reason, please just let me know. We can purchase what's called a key, so that you don't need to use your cell phone for this verification process. To date, the only person who's gotten back to me is Paul Martin, so thank you, Mr. Martin.
What he gets for never getting a cell phone.
I wonder who the whip was behind that.
I received notice from the Blandford Historical Commission regarding the gazebo. I thought I brought it with me, I didn't. Regarding the gazebo
Mhm.
and its disrepair, they really wanted to make it known to the board, as the board are the trustees of the park.
Mhm.
And then Ryan Stafford followed up with an email today stating that he is meeting with Home Depot on the 15th to see if they'll be able to assist in any way.
Okay.
And also, last week I got an email from Kristen Smitty to inform us that a new family has moved to town with 2 children
Yeah.
who are interested in attending. One is interested in attending Gateway, the other is interested in attending Westfield Vocational. Obviously, the deadline has been missed.
Mhm.
I have spoken with finance about it. It's really difficult to sort of put a number on that right now because we don't know which one they'll be accepted to.
Yeah.
And we don't have a finalized number for vocational schools
Okay.
anyway. So I'm waiting for more details from Kristen.
So I
at this
think
point.
if I remember correctly, we have to build it in the budget and then that way it's the money's
I
there.
think we've got enough money in it.
Last time that this happened, when there was a deadline missed, the board did have to make a special vote.
You will, so you can, I guess, according to Kristen's email. Oops, I didn't bring, thought I brought everything with me, I apologize, but according to Kristen's email, this did happen in the past. And I guess the applications were denied. And the state overruled that and said, no, you still
You
gotta,
could still-
you
yeah.
still gotta pick up the tuition, so.
When I remember Blanford dealing with it, it was approved,
Okay,
but I don't remember it being denied, so, but either way, we.
Either way,
vote for it.
yes.
Yeah, okay. All right,
I think that's it for me.
that's it?
Yep.
All right, Jennifer's not here with us tonight, so we don't have a board of
Just-
health.
Something that I wanted to ask, and I meant to ask you earlier, have we gotten anywhere with the electrical for this building?
Oh, so interestingly, I had a phone call from a woman who was doing conducting a survey for the OSD, which is the Operational Services Division, and they run the website that has all the state contracts on it and all. So if you are a vendor and you want to be on state contract, you have to meet certain criteria.
Yeah,
And so she was doing a survey on the vendors that Blandford has used and, what our, experience with that was.
yeah,
And I was honest when she had asked me about Elm Electric, and I said I haven't really been able to get a response. We have, a part that's sitting in our gymnasium that was rather expensive. It's been there since December. I've reached out multiple times. I really haven't gotten anywhere. And then I got a phone call from our electrical inspector who left me a message saying that somebody from Elm, I think, reached out to him and said, "Oh, we should have a meeting. We should sit down and talk."
Oh, I
So
wonder,
I don't know if there's a direct correlation there between the survey and the phone
Okay.
call. But that's where we are. So I will be doing my best. I'm gonna get back in touch with Nate and see more details on that, but
Great,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Great.
good. All right, okay, we've got some action items, a lot of appointments to make. First, we gotta look at the payroll. Is this the one that we already approved, Joanne? We just need to motion it?
Oh, no, table, sorry.
Table.
I put it back on there because TJ didn't sign last week, but I got him
You're
to
good.
sign
Okay.
Yeah.
in the
twisted my
meantime, so
arm.
you can table it now.
I see one in here. Is this different? Oh, this is just for, okay.
That's for Christina's pay.
Um. All right, so motion to table, action item A. There's a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
I'll make a note there that it was already done.
So I'm just wondering if I can do these all at once.
Go
So,
for it.
thank you. Motion to approve the following appointments, all in one motion. Raymond Hulte to Emergency Management, July 1st, 2025, June 30, 2026. Leon Ripley, Agricultural Commission, July 1st, 2025, June 30th, 2028. Matt Ripley, Assistant Electrical Inspector, July 1st, 2025, June 30, 2026. Nathan Kowalczyk, Electrical Inspector, July 1st, 2025, June 30th, 2026. Jennifer Dubiel, Chester Blanford Police Chief, July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Adam Dolby is Fire Chief, July 1st, 2025, June 30, 2026. Adam Dolby Emergency Management for term July 1st, 2025, June 30th, 2026. Adam Dolby Forest Warden, July 1st, 2025, June 30, 2026.
So,
All in favor?
aye.
All right. So we are, did you have something, George? We're not to
Just
you.
one question. Who is chairperson of the Emergency Management Committee? Who's in charge of the whole operation if an emergency occurs?
We don't have a chairperson. It's a
So
full committee.
what happens when there's an emergency?
Thank you for your question.
Right?
Thank you for your question. All right, we are going to new business, and I would like to switch because I know Finance Committee has a long list. So I'm gonna switch and have George, so motion to go new business B first. But I do have something to, is there a second? Sorry.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
I do have something first, and this not just related to you, George, that we've had a couple of going on in town, so I just wanted to read, where am I? So first, we wanted to acknowledge the community effort in town is fantastic. We have so many people in town who are willing to help and volunteer and do it on a regular basis. I mean, I'm sure we would love some more volunteers for rec. But it's that sort of energy, I think, that makes Blanford what it is. However, recently we've had some issues. It's been brought to our attention that there's been some instances where individuals have been working on town property, assessing buildings, engaging activities under an assumption of authority that they don't hold. And while we appreciate that intent, we want to make sure that there is permission granted beforehand. The reason being that we have to protect the town's finances, and there being legal, financial responsibilities, liabilities with people working on town property without authority. So going forward, no individual may perform work, access town buildings, or act in official capacity without prior written authorization from the select board. We know we're a small town, we have limited resources, and we do appreciate, again, the volunteer and value the service, but the willingness to contribute must be coordinated, transparent, and properly approved. Unfortunately, it sort of opens up Pandora's box to people just doing things on town property that they don't have written authorization for, like putting up a fence, for example. So we're asking that residents work with us instead of around us. If there's anything that residents see, and this is important, Mary, that needs to be brought to our attention, or if they have a skill or idea, you know, we're welcome to listening to it so they can, get on the agenda to speak with us. And then there's some Mass General laws that refer to the reason, that this is important, and I can give those to Mary if you want them afterwards.
Yes, thank you.
All right, that being said, George, do you want to come on down? I know that you are on the agenda.
Thank you.
I've got two sets of agendas going.
Hope that's homework.
His homework's part of it.
Color printer and everything, huh?
Oh, yeah. Doesn't spare to do this for you.
Is that for me, George?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, what do you got for us, George?
Okay, first I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to spearhead this project with the park. It all began a year ago last fall when I came in to express my concern about the dilapidated condition of the park and the old town hall. And then last spring, you confronted me with the challenge of chairing the restoration of the town hall and the Bicentennial Park. And I'm a firm believer that if you speak up about something, you have to be willing to take responsibility for correcting it. And so that started this whole process, which is yet to be completed. I've learned more than I ever expected to in this process, and I think it hopefully in the long run, it will help the town considerably as we move forward. What I did first of all was realized from what was available at the time that there wasn't money available to paint the town hall, the old town hall, and to renovate the Bicentennial Park. That there was a supposedly limited amount of money available, and we had to look elsewhere for the funds. So grants were written, grant proposals were written, and we succeeded in getting about $6,500 to $7,000 in donations and grants from Home Depot and a couple other sources. As you know, part of that Home Depot grant was their involvement, because they don't give money without involvement. So we had at least 14 people from various Home Depots show up that day to help with the renovation, as well as over a period of 3 weeks, we had almost 40 town folks involved at one degree or another. We spent the vast majority of the money. There's a little bit held in reserve because of the advice we had gotten to keep it for the spring when the finishing touches needed to be taken on the plantings and the maintenance and the fertilization and the clean planting of new bulbs and things like that, which we have a few dollars left to do that with. What concerned me as this process passed along was where the money is for the park's maintenance in the future and what has happened in the past. So I sent a couple of requests for information to the town clerk, who was very, very limited in what she could provide me in terms of documentation of previous spending and how the money had been managed from the original 7,000 plus that had been given by Winifred Arms at the time the park was created. So I spent some time doing some research, and what you have in front of you is a copy of that research. The kind of, the first page is a summarization because I didn't know how much backup you wanted, but what's behind it is the first layer of backup, which I then have about 14 other pages of backup information that I have found. So what I'd like to do tonight, because I think it's really important as we lay down some short-term and long-term plans for the park, is that we look at the situation in the past and what has happened. Because as I dug into this situation, I became very aware that things were askew, very seriously askew. And it all started out with the park being deeded over to the town by Winterford Arms and it being accepted at the town meeting back in 1975. The selectmen also received about the same time a $7,500 grant from Winterford Arms, and the special fund was set up for that to be in what term am I looking for? Perpetual.
That's a tough one.
Perpetual care.
Thank you, for in perpetual care.
Perpetuity.
Perpetuity is a good word too. Thank you. In perpetuity, and that the interest from that money be used for the regular ongoing maintenance of the park. So what I was able to find out was that that money was handled by the treasurer at the time of the town and was invested. And in 1982, the selectmen authorized the treasurer. There was very little information from the 77 to 79 about the park at all in any of the town annual reports. But in 82, the treasurer went to the selectmen who authorized them to, or authorized the treasurer to take the money that was in perpetual accounts of Warnoco savings account and place it in a CD account. And at that time, they identified the amount of money as $21,072 plus change. And they invested it in a 8.65% three-year CD. That matured, and it was rolled over again in 85, which came to maturity in 87, at which time there was $6,754.33 in the account, of which the park $20,000 principal was supposed to be held for reinvestment and not, and for perpetuity and not for spent. There's no interest received in 86 or 87. In 80 and 90, the town report acknowledged receiving $5,878 in interest from those investments. The principal at the time was reported in the town report of 91 of $31,947. Skip ahead a little bit to 93, and the principal had grown to $36,259 and change. By 2002, the principal was $45,383. Then, in 2012, the town reported that there was only there was $53,305 in the account.
Mhm.
But from 2012 to 2022, things changed, and I haven't been able to dig out all the information on it yet. But the amount was dropped to $14,500 in the non-expendable portion of the money, and there was $9,230 in the expendable portion of the money. Then by 2024, there was $15,553 in the non-expendable amount, and in the expendable amount, there was $7,427. Now, if you look at the period of time from June of 2012, where there was over $53,000 in the account, to June of 2024, there was less than $23,000, a loss of $30,000. We cannot account, or I cannot account for what happened to that $30,000.
Mhm.
And I think that needs to be found. It's a serious situation. I don't know where it is. I don't know how it can be tracked. But I think that money, if you look at it as an investment loss, it probably has compounded itself several times during that period of time. So that you're looking at a loss of much, much greater than $23,000 or $30,000. And I think this is something that needs to be investigated and documented very carefully. There was very little documentation, if any, of how money was spent during that whole period of time from 1976 to date. There's no, in the town reports. I requested information from the town clerk about expenditures, and she was unable to give me any documentation of any significant expenditures for the past umpteen years since 1975 of what money has been spent for.
Okay.
So that documentation of what money was spent for, what was available, and how we move forward with what money may be available, I think needs to be addressed very quickly, because that would be a determining factor in terms of budget for the future and how much could be done at the park to upgrade it with the things that need to be upgraded now, i.e. the fence needs to be placed, it's a liability, the top rungs on some of the fencing are rotted through, the stonework needs to be updated in spots and things like that. So there's several projects that have been clearly identified that need to be done in the very near future. But without knowing how much capital money is there and how much interest is producing and how it's invested, it's just a shot in the dark.
So what, the way I'm looking at it now, we have to go back to the treasurer or the accountant to go back, sit down with the bank and find out if there were withdrawals and who and all that.
Right.
So that's going to be detective work.
That's right. You need a forensic auditor to really do a thorough job of what's happened to that money. It is, in my opinion, a sizable amount of money. So it's, not something you can just wink at and say goodbye to. To go along hand in hand with that is the policy in Blandford's financial policy manual. I call your attention to the last page where it says reporting requirements. On a quarterly basis, a report shall be prepared by the treasurer and distributed to the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, Finance, and Advisory Committee. The report will include the following information as a minimum: a listing of the individual accounts and individual securities held at the end of the reporting period, a listing of short-term investment portfolio and security type, and maturity to ensure compliance with the diversification and maturity guidelines established by the diversification section of the IPS. Summaries of the income earned on a monthly basis and year-to-date basis. The degree of compliance with the tenets set forth in the IPS. This policy has been in existence for several years, and as far as my inquiry, I've not been able to get a copy of it, and I have no idea why it isn't being done.
So that was mandated by the state previously. It is no longer mandated, so it's not something that we do, so we don't have those reports to give to you.
Then this hasn't changed.
But I can tell that you've done a ton of work, George, and a ton of research, and it is much appreciated. Our accountant and treasurer are working on making sure that all the funds are accounted. Obviously, it's a big project. But at the moment, I mean, we're unable to speak to something that happened 2 decades ago right now.
I appreciate
There's
that.
currently $8,000 to spend. So over 8,000, I think 8,400 to spend in the account. And a landscaper has been hired.
Is that the
to do
principal or the interest?
That's the interest to spend.
And how much is in the principal?
I don't know that number right now.
Okay.
So do you have,
It's somewhere between 14 and 15,000.
Okay, so we still don't know where that 30,000 is missing.
Well, no,
Correct,
that's
that's-
got to be
Okay.
investigated now.
Okay.
what is there something next that you had on the agenda? for us,
Yes,
George?
the other, I just would be curious to see if the other policies have been set aside in regarding the investments of the town money. Because one of the policies clearly states that under investments, that the treasurer will separately maintain all long-term accounts in order to proportion interest and any realization of unrealized gains or losses at all trust funds under the treasurer's control unless otherwise directed by the donor.
Mhm.
Do we have that information available?
I do not know off the top of my head, George.
Okay, because I think that's critical to know,
Mhm.
not just about the arms account, but for other accounts in town, which is a whole other
The
separate
treasurer
thing.
herself was in an automobile accident, so she's kind of been, sidetracked. So I think, you know, out of courtesy, we'll give her the information
Okay.
and see if she can play catch up.
But again, if it's a report that is not mandated anymore, it will not be something we have.
Okay,
to provide.
then this policy needs to be updated.
Mhm.
Because as far as I know, it's been handed out by the town
Mhm.
to people who want it, so
Mhm.
that's available. Okay, moving ahead. When we look at what has been accomplished the past year, we are at a point with the park that we have finally gotten the water in. We need to develop a program for maintenance because of the need for a lot of the plantings to be watered on a regular basis this summer. We need to come up with a plan
We've
to,
hired a landscaper,
well, that's good.
so
And
that is all taken care of, George.
the landscaper needs to be advised about what supplies are still available
Mhm.
and what the recommendations are from Home Depot in terms of the materials that were provided as well as the
Yep.
plantings.
So
and
part of the
forth.
scope and sequence would be that the landscaper is knowledgeable of those things as well.
Okay,
So, yeah, and just to
So-
clarify, there was no appointment, and I don't mean this and to be rude in any way, there was no appointment of you as a chair of anything at any point.
what do you?
You
whatever
you
want to call it.
volunteered and it
Yes,
was
I did.
helpful, but the project is over,
Okay,
so it's been completed. There's
Okay.
water, we have a landscaper. Bicentennial is being managed.
okay, then can I see the contract that has been developed with landscape?
Once the contract is completed, you can request that, absolutely,
When it's signed or when it's finished at the end of the season?
when it's completed and signed,
Okay, which will be,
when it's done.
Yeah.
When it's- Imagine.
If you were listening earlier, I am meeting with him this week to get all of the appropriate paperwork from him, including his W-9, his
Okay.
insurance. And he will sign the agreement for the work to be done until the end of November. And if the board is pleased with his performance, we will discuss keeping him on for longer, but I didn't want to enter into any lengthy contract without seeing the quality of the work.
do you want any kind of input on what needs to be done, or are you just gonna wing it?
George, that's kind of, no, I'm not winging
No, I'm
anything.
serious, I'm serious, because.
He is
I-
a
you know, Fonz
landscaper.
Shared
He's a
with me about,
professional landscaper.
okay, but landscapers need to know what they're beginning with and what's available for them to use.
He's visited the site, he's assessed it, I think that
Okay,
we're.
and he
good.
knows what materials are left,
Yes.
and he knows what, in the basement to use, and he has a program understood with all the plans.
Correct, yep,
Oh, good, okay.
thank you. Do you have anything else for us, George?
No, I'll be waiting to hear back on the forensic work on the,
Well, if you
Funds?
want to request something, but as of now, we don't have anything to get back to. No one's gonna be getting back to you.
so no one is gonna look into the finances.
No, that is something that our treasurer and accountant are working on, but no one is getting back to you with that information.
Can I
No,
request that somebody gets back to me when they find out what happened to this money?
you can. It's not gonna be
It'll be
anytime, it's
public
not a,
knowledge.
yeah, it's not going to be, so finding that historical information and knowing what our treasurer and accountant are working on right now. And that one of them has a daughter that's just in an accident, the other one is undergoing some serious medical conditions. That is not a top priority right now. It will not be anytime soon. So I would ask that you not request something soon because it's just gonna take time away from the day-to-day important things that are
Would 3
happening.
months be a reasonable time?
George, I don't know.
You're
It's-
pushing,
Yeah.
you're pushing.
When the information is found, it will be provided to the public. Absolutely. No one, it's a priority, but it's not a top priority right now. Okay? Thank you for your time. All right. All right, we got a lot to do with budget. Are these all of our, but these are not our budget papers here, are they?
Yeah, I gave it to you.
Oh.
It was a packet.
This packet.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so first thing we're gonna start with is explaining what's in the packet. that
Love it.
we have, Okay, so if you take your little paper clip off.
Do I have a packet?
Oh, no. Can you draw a copy?
Yes,
I provided crib notes.
Thank
Crib
you.
notes,
I love
nothing
crib notes.
fancy, nothing
That's all right.
fancy. Just something for you to doodle on or whatever,
Mhm.
if you have any questions to yourself or whatever, if you go through this.
Okay.
Okay? So we're gonna start the discussion with water.
Oh, good.
So yes, may I be excused?
Yes, you may.
Really, I can't take notes for this, so.
Yeah.
Can I go home?
You may be excused.
Nothing personal, guys.
They worked so hard on all these numbers.
She said that now.
I feel so terrible.
I
think
I
should stay here.
Listen, I feel your math pain.
Thank you. All right,
Okay.
so let's just start out with water. I will go through this fairly quickly, but
Okay,
stop me as we're going.
As we
through
get
it.
questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
questions. Okay. we'll
thank
do
you.
our best.
Oh, you needed these. Hold on, while you're talking, TJ and I just have to sign a couple things. I
Okay.
apologize.
I'll stay, don't worry. You're gonna wanna wait.
I need a stamp.
Go ahead, guys, I won't leave. You don't ever want to stay.
No.
I gotta learn how to scribble.
Yeah, mine's a good scribble. You gotta work on that. Takes practice. Helps when you have to change your last name halfway through your life.
You're faster than me.
No, that's okay. I should have signed them earlier. All right, here you go.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Joanne. Have a good night. All right.
Okay, the team, the FinCon team met with water a couple of times,
Mhm.
and Brad was there, I think, Brad was there for the second meeting, first meeting was with Gordon, just to go through the budget.
Okay.
So a couple of things happened, I wanna start at least, I don't wanna go too far back, but FY 25.
Okay.
There was a transfer that occurred by the accounting team, this had been Eric's team,
Mhm.
of $87,554 from the general fund into Waters Fund. Why that transfer was made, we think it was because they felt that they didn't have enough revenue to pay the expenses that were outlined.
Okay.
So it came from the town account into water. Okay, and we'll talk about how we're gonna get that money back in a few minutes.
Okay.
That was one thing. In reality, we don't see the account for, I did analysis to say, what is FY 25 gonna look like? And we went through that. We think they're gonna be fine in FY 25,
Okay.
but the expense lines seem to be overinflated, meaning what I'm seeing in reality that's coming through for FY 25 is
Uh-huh.
far less than what is in the budget.
Right, the
projected
budget.
Right, for FY 25.
So did they seem to be spending at the end of the year? Like, is that,
Well,
did we
I
see that
asked them if
pattern?
they could adjust it, for
Yeah.
FY 25, they didn't want to do that. So we're just gonna keep watching it into
Okay.
April and May and June and see how they close and see if it's been a trend of.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what, because I know we've had, departments in the past that would typically suddenly want to spend it more at the end of the year and rather than
Use it or
when it was
lose it.
actually, yeah.
Yeah,
Just
that's
to make
the
sure that's
reality.
happening. Okay,
They can't afford to do that. I mean, they need to tighten up on the
Okay.
expenses. So,
Okay.
that's just, we want to make sure, and we approached it with, we want to make sure that you guys, you're not sitting in a deficit situation, you're in a
Mhm.
surplus situation, right?
Okay.
So going on to FY 26. Now, we know that there's water lien tax title revenues that we don't have in here yet. That has to come from Sarah. at the end of the year, so there may be some upside on the revenue side on
Okay.
that. And to ensure, if you look at the first page that's in your packet, where it says, the enterprise water budget, and the
Mhm.
first line is revenue, this is all the top line revenue for water.
Mhm.
In order for FY 26, which is on the far right,
Yep,
to pay the expenses that we have outlined in the next page, we're gonna have to transfer $56,000 from the retained earnings,
from water's retained
from
earnings.
water's retained
Okay.
earnings, and another $35,000 from stabilization. And I already checked with accounting, Kelly's in agreement with this. Because again, I think the expenses may be overinflated, but you gotta have the revenue to pay those expenses regardless in your
Okay.
budget, right?
So they haven't brought in enough to cover
The expenses.
the expenses, understood, okay.
Any questions, you guys, or anything you wanna add? Okay.
Jackie, just maybe, I know it's in her notes here, but that will almost completely, if I'm correct, deplete their retained earnings.
Yes,
Yeah,
retained earnings will be depleted. Stabilization, they've got $159,000 in there, so there is some wiggle room still.
So you're just taking 35 from that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So top line, 762,000, will be what from a revenue and other funds transferred in.
Okay,
Okay,
yep,
any questions? We go to the following page. It lays out the salaries. The salaries are stayed in line with what we agreed to, which is no more than 2.5%. They do have some, even though it doesn't show here, couple of the salaries were being paid from a grant this year. So the budgeted number of 40,000 will still be there, but they're getting some of that money from a grant. I don't have all the grant information, but that's what we found out, because just take as an example, this is how confusing this has become. The salary wages for the water superintendent are coming in around, I'm projecting $18,000 will show up on the expenditure report, which means part of that money that was paid to him was through a grant
for
And-
this year.
for
Yeah,
this year.
and just to add, I'm not interrupting.
No, go ahead.
It was paid out of the incorrect grant account because there was a grant account for expenses and a grant account for salaries and labor.
Okay,
And he was putting whomever, I'm not placing any blame, but the money was coming out of the wrong account.
Okay.
So that's
will that be corrected?
one thing. Kelly is aware of it.
Okay.
She's trying to figure out how to correct that. And then I think just another thing that should be discussed is what, as a board, what is your understanding of the water superintendent's weekly hours?
I believe it's stated as 20 hours a week, is that correct?
The initial job description for water superintendent is not to exceed 19 hours a week.
Okay,
We've been seeing timesheets come in at 25 hours a week, 20 hours a week,
Yeah.
just all over the place. So I think that's something that you need to keep in mind. I don't know if at any time there was a discussion, whether it was with the board, the water commission, whomever, to adjust that to what Blanford would consider a full-time position, because if you're at 25 hours a week, that's would be considered full-time, eligible for benefits and all of that. When the job was,
okay,
when the job was posted, it was up to 19, so just keep that in mind.
and are they budgeting for 19 hours a week, or are they budgeting for over 19 hours a week, I guess would be my
I'm
question.
calculating 22 or 23 hours a week, so.
So right off the bat, they're budgeting for more than the job
But
description.
what he's doing is putting in all the overtime in those buckets. Like in most cases, you put overtime separate as a separate line. He adds it to the
So,
overall.
Time and a
budget.
half overtime?
I don't know. Time and a half.
I don't believe the number is time and a half in the thought of like, oh, it's extra money per hour,
Yeah,
but it's, getting paid for additional hours
That-
that you're not contracted to
I
work.
understand.
I have to admit, last year, I didn't dig as deep as I did this year
Mhm.
with the rest of the team looking at this, so we're just finding these. This is just an odd thing. The
Mhm.
salary stuff has to be
Okay,
But it is what it is. We've got the number. This is what the number they budgeted,
yeah,
which is 183,000. Okay, up from 179. So then you go down to the regular, water expenses, utilities, chemicals, et cetera. There is an increase there, not much. There was they need the 4 heaters are needed, so they went on water maintenance from 20,000 to 24,000. They needed to reduce their expenses, even to come in with the fact that we were adding the monies from the retained earnings. But it still needed to reduce in order to be okay for the year. So he agreed, the team agreed to reduce their capital expense line from 95,000 to 50,000.
okay,
Just to be clear, that's not a normal capital expense line. I talked to accounting about it. It's basically kind of a slush fund is the way she referred to it for them to use at their disposal. So we're going to change that naming convention next year to change it to something more realistic. So he takes money, the department takes money out of there to fund different things that they're doing.
But it's
Without
not
having to
planned
come
for.
through for approval.
but it's not planned for in
Right,
advance.
correct.
And to have, $95,000 in an account where,
That's a lot of money in an account where you're
That's
doing.
bought us a little green truck.
Well, and we had that discussion with the water department and said, we gotta get this straightened out.
So, just
did it
curious, do
correctly.
we know what's been spent so far in this, out of this fiscal year in that?
I do.
You don't
I
have to give
that.
me an answer. I'm
I
just
think
curious.
I wanna say it's around 30,000 maybe.
Yeah, so it's
something.
way over.
And yeah.
Understood.
Okay. So going further along, so you can see on the total expenditures line, 259 from last year to 218, that it has to do with the fact that we're reducing some of the things.
Mhm.
Then we get into the loans that are for water that everybody's aware of. These are not new loans. I was a bit, surprised myself, frankly, because I didn't really get into it last year. But from a principal standpoint, for the 4 loans that were taken out earlier, they're still owing $2.8 million on the principal, and again, on the interest, the total is 1.4. So, you're talking 4-point-something million for this loan that still is outstanding. And the first loan won't be paid off until 2042.
2042.
So that's the loans that were taken out a long time ago. Probably
USDA that.
Yeah, the USDA
Help.
loans. The only thing they could do differently there possibly is to refinance them and bring down the
That was my
interest
next
rate.
question. I know there
Well,
was talk about that, but.
To refinance it, I did sit in on a meeting with Henry, who's the USDA, I guess, representative for all of this. There's no way to just refinance. You have to take out another loan,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
and it would roll into
Okay,
this new loan with a lower interest rate, but it would require you to borrow more money. And
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. okay,
So,
We have
but
to look at
to
it.
be sure, I mean, yeah, again, you'd have to do the numbers on it, because right now, if I remember correctly, it's some of these USDA loans are at like a 6% interest rate, which is like crazy.
Yeah,
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it might make sense, I don't know. That's something
Well,
for
and
somebody
that's-
else to decide, but.
Yeah,
Well, really, the water department should take care of their own finances and work with Treasury and figure out what's the best possible way to bring that down.
Mhm.
And, but not extend the loan forever.
no,
Right, you just
but then
spent all this-
again, you have to consider what projects do they have planned for the future. I know, they had mentioned that redoing the pipe here on Russell Stage
I know.
Road and the one going down 23, because they're all old pipes, they're over 100 years old.
Yeah.
And would it then be prudent for them to take out a larger loan to cover those expenditures?
Well, I think we should take that as one of the follow-ups, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of questions about what we really should be doing, I
Mhm.
think.
No,
I mean, you're talking about $4.2 million already in debt with an additional 700,000. I mean, the
Yeah.
SCADA loan was 1.1 million, but I think at the end it's gonna be 700,000. So another 700,000 for that. That is not even being charged yet. They haven't gotten their first bill for that. In
Yeah.
FY 27, there's gonna be another $47,000 bill. That has to be paid every year.
And if they default, the town's responsible.
Absolutely, it's guaranteed by the town. So anyway, so that's, I just want to make sure that everybody's educated on what the loans are that are outstanding. If you go to the next page, we have the transfer to the general fund of the 70,740, which is the indirect costs. The team still feels strongly that they're being charged too much. And I said, okay, next year.
The water commissioners feel that they're being paid too much.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant. the
No,
finance
that
committee.
they're being charged to us.
Okay,
This is for, as you know, all the stuff that they've done with the town. I explained to them that this year, the town has been paying they paid $32,000, the town did, towards the water bills.
Mhm.
Okay, so in effect, that part of the 70,000 is a wash, and then really what they're being charged is 40-something thousand. I'm more than happy to look at that next year, after we get through all this and say next year we'll address it. Because there's not enough time to do it this year and do
Yeah.
a real thorough job as to what they really
and
owe.
when we've looked at it deeply, it actually always ends up turning out that we should be charging them more, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I would advise them to,
Yeah. So,
Mention that.
yeah,
Would go up.
yeah,
right, from a transfer to water stabilization, it's always an important thing to save for the future.
Right.
Right? They don't have the money this year to save for the future,
Okay.
based on what we're seeing, so we're not putting anything in stabilization. Remember when I talked about the 87,000 at the beginning?
yep,
They have to pay that back to the town.
yep,
So in FY 26, we'll transfer another $44,000 out of their account into the town to take part of it. And then the next year we'll take the rest.
okay,
At the end of the day, they should be in a surplus of around $7,600 based on this,
oof,
which
Okay.
is tight.
yeah,
Which again, I think we're seeing overinflated numbers in some cases.
Yeah.
Do you guys have
That's
anything you want to add? Or?
No.
okay,
Okay, now, I want to just briefly touch on some challenges, risks that we need to address in water.
okay,
Once again, one of the service plazas hasn't paid their bill yet. So, not something that we should find out in a meeting, it should just be part of our process with collecting. They're following up on that now.
but why does this keep getting missed? Do we know, like,
I
what's
don't
falling
think there's
through?
my guess is, and we had this discussion, and Brad said that they need to look at doing something different about collections.
Mhm.
Even though collection sits in treasury just puts a lien on the house if they're not paying.
Mhm.
They're not sending dunning notices, they're not sending, hey, come in and make a payment plan, they're not doing stuff like that, from my understanding.
Mm.
And from Water's understanding. So Water needs to put that plan together as to how they're going to, collect money. Now, if they collected the money that is owed, they may not have any problem,
Mm.
right? But what I'll be requesting from Sarah is a delinquency. I don't want to know names, I don't want to know anything like that. I just want to know what are the numbers,
Yep,
what's the aging on those numbers?
okay,
Because in reality, if people haven't paid, if people are going beyond like a year, let's say, the town should be putting money aside to pay that debt,
mm,
because eventually it's gonna come up, and we're gonna, from an accounting standpoint, you have to write it off.
Well, I thought that,
Yeah,
according to, the contracts, with the turnpike, like McDonald's and Circle K and that, they pay rent to the turnpike. And the turnpike in return is supposed to be responsible for any delinquent bills.
right,
So why should we our water department be writing off when if they follow the contracts with the
Well, I don't
turnpike.
think you would ever write that off. I'm talking about generally the rest of the population that's not paying,
Individuals.
individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. The turnpike's gonna pay. It's just a matter of being on top of them and making sure that they pay
Can we
when
put
they're supposed to. That's something that we could talk to Treasury about.
I believe they do.
They do.
Do
put
They do put interest,
Yeah.
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 They tried to charge us interest, so.
Yeah. they do.
So the other thing about the turnpike that I think is a risk is, and we talked about this, we all think this is a
Very
risk,
concerned.
is the turnpike is, rumor has it, no one has any real facts, is gonna shut down for a period of time and, redo the service
yeah,
plaza.
okay.
yeah,
That's the rumor. Nobody
right.
knows any facts.
Mhm.
I did call,
Gordon said up to 2 years it would be down. It
Yeah.
could be down.
could be done.
Could be down. But again, we're not seeing
But-
anything, we're just hearing.
Right, and we asked Gordon, I actually sent him a note and said, have you been there? Have you talked to those guys? Are you getting in there to find out what's
Yeah.
going on? And they're not letting him in supposedly.
Okay.
So it needs to be a senior person going there and saying, look, the town we need this revenue, right? Now, Gordon's under the impression, and he may be 100% right, which is that, they paid a good portion of the debt that I just talked about,
Mhm.
right, in their water bill.
Mhm.
It's very possible, which is around, their water bill is $410,000 a
Mhm.
year between the two of them. So it's very possible that they'll still pay that debt. He thinks they will, but we can't go on, we think, we have to go on facts.
Can we
right?
invite someone to a select board meeting to
Sure.
ask for,
But I still feel that's the
Update.
water commission's role,
so maybe invite someone to a water commissioner
yes.
we could do a water / select board meeting.
Can we do that as a follow-up?
Yeah,
Let's do that.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that has nothing to do with water, but does have to do with our other stuff that we'll talk about is, remember, they pay a meal tax too.
Yeah,
If they're not doing meals anymore, we get about $40,000 a year in meal tax. Now, that's
So
part
we need to
of
be able to
the
reflect
store,
that,
the
yeah.
country store too, but
Yeah.
it's probably minimal compared to the service plaza, right?
But that's, the difference between the water department having any budget, that's like half their budget,
Understood.
yeah.
But
do we get a portion of gas tax on that too?
don't know.
Nothing?
I don't know.
Oh,
Gas
cause I
tax
thought,
or
I
what?
thought the state had passed something where the towns could tax, gas tax. A
Going
portion
through the
onto
service
the,
plaza? Do you
yeah,
remember that at all in your? But, we need to pay very strong attention to what's going on out there in the service
Mhm.
plaza, because it really supports the town
Right.
quite a bit. Okay? So that's it for water. Any questions on water?
So many.
Look, I think you guys are going in the right direction with the
Yeah,
fact
I
that
agree.
you're gonna have department meetings, and these types of questions can come up and be required to come back with an answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. Let's go on, let's do broadband next.
Okay.
Much more beautiful picture.
Mhm.
In terms of revenue, you can see there's 3 pages here for broadband in your package.
Mhm.
Revenues coming in on plan. We will need to move $55,000 from retained earnings to their account this year.
Okay.
They have $345,000 in retained earnings, so they're doing pretty good,
Okay.
considering they don't have head count overhead. They don't have any employees really. As you know, in broadband, the expenditures really are around the infrastructure that supports broadband in the town, right? So we spend, you can see it there, $376,000 just in the infrastructure.
Mhm.
So you have Whip City Fiber that manages it for us, but we still have to pay, maintenance and all that stuff, which did go up a little bit. They do have a debt of a loan of $197,000
Mhm.
for the year. Their total debt is $1,090,000.
Okay,
But what's different about them? They get $107,000 a year from CAF two money from the state, from that
Oh, yeah,
original
that's
grant. For the next 7 years, they're gonna get, so that's 700,000 of it right there.
fantastic.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
So, I mean, my take is that there's nothing to be concerned about with them.
yeah,
We will put more money into stabilization this year for
Mhm.
them, 25,000. They have 130,000 in stabilization right now. And we'll look at their, at the end of the year, now that I understand these two enterprise accounts a lot better, and we do as a collective team, we didn't really know a lot about them, is we'll look at how did we end the year, right? This is just budget.
mhm.
We don't ever look at, well, how did we end the year? Was it
Mhm.
better? Was it worse? So I think it's important for us to lay that out and see why are the expenses going up? What's driving it, right?
yeah, that might be good to have a select board meeting too, just to touch base
See
on
how we
that.
ended? Sure,
July, August,
sure.
maybe, or whatever. for you guys.
At the end of the day, they'll have a surplus, which is good.
Mhm.
That, there was discussion about wanting to pay down more of the debt with retained earnings. And we suggested, no, don't do that at this point, because you have to have the money sitting there in case your expenses go up,
Okay,
right?
plus we have the CAF two funding.
Right. Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, and broadband has agreed to what this is, so
Okay.
they're all set.
Did water agree to what that one?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so now,
The general fund.
the general fund. Fun stuff, right? Okay, so we can either, if you want to start with revenue, top line revenue, we can do that.
So this one here? No.
Actually, let's see. Is it this one?
It should say page 101.
Okay, yeah, that's what I have.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So this is a synopsis of what is in the package, okay? As far as, let me just go to the bottom line, I think we should do that, and then we'll go through where is my other page? I thought I had another page. Oh, you can't see it.
Yeah, you can't see the numbers.
Yeah, you can't see the numbers. So at the bottom
Mhm.
of this, it's basically net zero because you've got your debits and your credits, your revenue and your expenses. And
Okay.
at the end of the day, it should net zero.
Okay.
And it does. Okay. There is 300 and, I don't know the number right offhand, but it's around $350,000 left in free cash from this year. So
Okay.
that's good. Okay, so the next page. Revenue. Top line revenue is looking very strong. We didn't have to increase taxes or anything this year, so that's good. We are well within our rights around the tax levy. There's a certain amount that you could charge in taxes, and we are way below that.
Okay.
Okay. So we're about $630,000 that we don't charge,
Mhm.
which is good. As you go through this package, if you go to page 2, it starts talking about all the different places that we get revenue from, the cherry sheet,
Mhm.
the state receipts, the local receipts. As I went through previous months on the local receipts, it just seemed like the forecast of what was going to happen was higher than what I thought. So I kind of reduced them a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not going to go through line by line unless you guys want to go through.
Veterans benefits, any reason why it's zero? Is that just how it is?
That's the way it is on the cherries.
Okay.
I'm sure. There's still the veterans line that we have.
We get
Okay.
the $10,000 from the
Right.
state.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So to go through all these fees and stuff is kind of.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of the day, it's 5 million. Okay.
Yep.
which is around 473,000 more than the prior year.
Okay.
Okay, let's go through the expenses. Because this is where it gets more into the detail.
Okay.
We're gonna need your opinion on a couple of things, for
Sure.
sure. Couple of things. We went with the merit increase of 2.5%
Mhm.
as a standard that the town has always done,
Mhm.
right? But I did share with the team, I wanted to see what the world is doing around merits, right? Or what the country's doing around merits, I should say. For Massachusetts, state, it's around 4%,
Mhm.
okay? The feds are giving around 4.3%. This was interesting. Our governor is getting 10%. Our state lawmakers are getting 11%.
Wow.
The COLA is 2.2%, and the national average is 4.1.
Okay.
I have an opinion on it. I'll just give you the
Yeah.
opinion and you guys can
Please do.
jump in there. We're a small town, right? We try to keep these expenses low. But it's also a retention issue when you don't give raises that are in line with
Yeah.
others.
Mhm.
So just bear that in mind as we move on
Okay.
in the future, okay? We don't give, outside of what I've seen with Ray, we don't do merit increases. We do point blank, everybody gets the same.
Mhm.
That's something we may want to look at in the future. Do we want to give merit increases to other people
Mhm.
and make it a range?
Well, we kind of did that with Nicole.
No, with
She
Nicole,
came
it was
looking for
more,
money and we gave it to her.
yeah, but that was
You
for,
guys gave it to
that was for going full time.
Right.
Still got a 2.5%, but she went full time. But there have been others that have come and said, 2.5% isn't gonna do it for the person that works for me,
Mm.
right?
Well,
And,
I did with Joanne,
right,
for example.
Yeah, that's another
But I
one.
think if you have to come to the table with reasons and proof and why and justify it, right?
Mhm.
Not just, I think this person
Yeah.
should get this, or
And
should
just-
get
yeah.
that. If you can come to the table, which I felt like I did, and I had presented it to you guys as
Right.
well as you guys. If you can justify it and show that
Mhm.
it's,
Well, why should a governor and legislature get 11%?
well, I don't work for them.
No, I'm just saying, that would be my argument right off the bat. What the
Right.
hell did you do that I didn't? I
Right,
did
no,
my
I
job,
agree
you
with
did
you.
yours.
I agree with you. I just meant in the confines of what we have
Right,
control
correct,
over. I agree with you that,
I
And
mean, in
we-
reality, you should have a range that says you could get 0 if
Right.
you're not doing what,
you're not performing.
Mm.
if you're not performing, you get 0, sorry, you don't get 2.5%.
It's just the
Just because you
managing
show
all
up.
that becomes an issue for a small town, I think, too.
It's the what?
The managing all of that
The
merit.
managing of all that.
But we
is
did
right.
recently do the big project we had the funding for to look at.
The Collins Center.
Yeah, the
study.
Collins Center, the rates. So that was put in place last year, I believe. So most of our
Yes.
positions should have been
Right.
last year fairly.
That's 2 years ago already. I
Was it
think.
2 years ago?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh.
I guess the
But
concern
regardless-
is if we only increase it 2.5, how long until we are
Behind
again behind and then have to make a big jump as
Right.
opposed to 4% a year?
And I'm not even saying that 2.5 is bad. I mean, 2.5 is fine if that's your middle. Right?
Yeah.
But if there should be, what you don't want, which we have had, where people come in and say, we want 10%, we want 5%,
Yes.
we want 6%.
Yeah,
You really have to say, you have to stay within this box. You only get so much.
yeah,
If they're performing at 4.5%, what is it that makes them better than the person that's performing at 2.5%?
and
Well,
that
that's the
is
problem with the
yeah.
merit system. I mean, you have your layperson, he's hired, he's supporting his family in that, and his job is to dig a ditch. Okay, how does he earn merit by digging a ditch? Digging more ditches?
No.
I mean, I
It's
don't
really-
understand the merit
Well,
system.
I'll just briefly explain it, we'll move on. You have really good workers
Yeah,
that can dig a ditch and do other things. Then you have workers that only dig a ditch, can't do anything else, just dig a ditch. That's the average. Then you have people that can go above and beyond. That's the merit system where it says, okay, Jackie, you dig a ditch for a living, but were you able to do these other things? That puts Jackie a little bit different than Joe, let's say.
Right,
That's really the way it's supposed to
but
work.
at some point, because years ago, we went through this at a job that I worked.
Mhm.
And when they would call you when you had to, they would interview you and say, well, your work is at such and such a level. And
Right.
you do excellent work. And 6 months later, you go in for a reevaluation and you're excellent. Third time you go in, well, now you're average because
Yes.
your average is excellent.
Right.
So it's a downhill slope for the worker. All right, once a highway worker gets all his endorsements,
Right.
there's no more incentive
Right.
and there's no more merit. So,
Well-
I mean, at some point, this has to be addressed.
Yeah, but didn't mean to push this off.
No,
but
well, no,
more
it's
of a-
just, this is my
Yeah.
pet peeve with merits.
I know. That, and I understand, I totally understand. Okay,
Moving on.
let's move on. So this, budget should look and feel the same as it always has, no big changes. I just cleaned it up in different spots and we kind of took some stuff out and put some stuff in. From a general fund standpoint, okay, what's in the general fund? All of the stipends we kept flat. Didn't change any stipends, they're all the same. Now, Dave Hobson did tell me that PVPC is looking at stipends in the general area and doing a study on them.
Okay,
So maybe next year we'll look at that, but this year they're all
yeah,
flat.
okay, fine, perfect.
Select board budget, we didn't do anything different there.
Yep,
You did approve, the secretary's increase, so
Yeah.
that's in there.
okay,
The town administrator, we put the 2.5%, that could be more, that could be less, it just, we just have to put a plug in of some sort at this point, because I know she's under contract and that works differently, right? The finance committee, a couple $100, but we don't really spend any money. The reserve, we left at 45,000. I looked that up and it could be anywhere from 5 to 7% of your budget, but we leave it at 45.
okay,
The accountant is one of the things that is driving some of the increases that we're seeing. The general fund went up 69,000,
mhm,
right? But with the new accountant, that went up a little bit,
yeah,
right? 23,000. Public buildings, audit went up 5,000, of
Mhm.
which we're gonna audit the water department. Right?
Administratively, as well as
Administratively.
the other things that we've talked about, but that was a free service.
Right.
hard copy.
Public buildings, if you go to the next page, town assessors really didn't change that much. Public buildings, going to the next page, went up 7,000. IT expenses actually went down, which is good, and the reason for that is because Christina got some work done this year with them, so we don't have to carry that expense in the new year. And the money
Sorry,
was
where are
there.
you? You lost me.
I'm
for a
sorry,
second.
I'm on page 2 of 9,
Page 2 of 9, okay,
okay? You okay?
no. What line are we on?
No, yeah,
Where
I
are we
think,
at?
so
line?
it goes,
I have treasurer, collector, town council, town clerk on that page.
yeah, so
Right,
Okay, is that right?
that's what I've
Where's-
got,
Yeah, that's what I've got too.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's go down the page, I'll
Okay.
not do my crib notes.
right.
Okay, so the assessors were pretty well flat,
Yes, okay.
okay? The treasury department,
Mm-hmm,
we all know, went up a little bit,
yep,
okay? So they went from 96 to 126. The challenge that we have there is that Sarah had come to us for an increase for Sue and for Joanne,
mm-hmm,
and the increase was quite substantial.
mm-hmm,
And we turned around and gave it 2.5% instead
mm-hmm,
for both.
okay,
The whole thing with Sue and Joanne needs further discussion because it's really not Sarah's budget. It's the
Yeah.
town's budget.
so it's coming out of it's not coming out of the money that we pay to Sarah, it's
Correct.
coming out of a separate line item,
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm,
so even though she asked for more money, right,
mm-hmm.
we're bringing it down to 2.5%.
And you're talking about the second line item there, or
This-
both of them,
Salaries,
Both of
wages,
them.
town
Okay.
treasurer,
Yeah.
yeah.
The one that says 11,881 and 17,821,
Mhm.
that's 2% of
Yeah.
their last year,
okay.
okay?
What, has Sarah commented on this, has she seen that recommended?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, when we had our contract negotiation with Sarah,
Yeah,
she had made some comments at the time about, that she felt that because some people had seen other employees get raises, even though she had asked for her employees to get a raise and they didn't, her concern, it's a gray area, right? Because Sarah isn't their boss, right? They work for the town.
yeah,
They don't work for Mass Munifin.
yeah,
So, but if you're sitting in that office and doing that job in your mind, because Sarah's training you and you're
Yeah.
reporting to Sarah, Sarah's your boss.
yeah,
But unfortunately, that's where the gray area is because Sarah isn't technically their boss. She's not in charge of their
Mhm.
salary or what they do or don't get paid. And from my understanding in conversations that I've had, that historically, she has asked for example, just using it as an example, Sue to have a raise, right? And Sue got the standard 2.5%. Other employees, no names being mentioned, got more. And I think that
other employees in different departments.
in different departments, excuse me, yes, to be clear, different departments, received more, and I think that had caused a little bit of an issue, understandably
Caused a
so.
big issue.
Well,
I'm trying to be diplomatic about it.
I mean, she's not their boss, she's asking for
Right, so
more
this is
money.
this
Who
is
is their boss?
the gray area, this is where,
a big
And,
challenge.
you know, she got a big hit increase, why doesn't she pay
She's-
her employees?
she's
I thought
kinda
she was
like
paying
on
for
loan.
one, and then Joanne.
so she
came
pays
on
for
and-
Derek,
she,
she pays Derek,
Okay, so
she's
on.
Yes.
on loan to Sarah,
right?
Joanne.
Joanne.
And Sue,
Well, it was
Why?
a job that was posted and she applied for it. It's a real job.
But those other positions that received a large increase were that position was in the water department. And that
Correct.
was not something that the select board was aware of or had any, so that was, it was unfair, and I understand the frustration, but it was not something that the town had planned for.
no.
That was a water department issue. So I understand the frustration, but that really was out of our hands.
Right. But what this has done though, is surfaced the need to address the Sue and Joanne
Yes.
challenge of reporting, who do they need to have an advocate,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not the people that these guys should be coming to and saying, give me a raise. That's not the finance committee's job. We don't know anything about what they do.
No,
Anybody that comes in here and says, well, I think I should give Sally 10% increase, we're like,
Well, Sarah advocates for them, correct?
Sarah advocates for them, but then was told to come back to us. So all I'm saying is we put in 2.5% for both.
Yes, okay. Okay. Which as town employees is what we did across the board, so
Yeah,
I mean, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
So I just wanted you to know.
okay.
Okay, so if you keep going, on the next line is law expenses are going up slightly to 5,000.
Okay,
Okay. We already talked about treasury. Go a little bit further down and we are into town clerk
yep,
and things were fairly flat there. Okay, go to page 3. Election expenses, the request was 7,336.
mm-hmm,
We reduced it down to 5,000. The reason being is last year, it had gone up from around 5,000, a little bit less, to 7,000 because this
National
FY
election,
25
yeah.
was the national election.
Right,
We had purchased the machine for 7,000, so the team felt we
Yeah.
should reduce that back to where it was at
Okay.
least.
nice try though.
salaries and wages under Dick Gates, Conservation Commission. There was an approval that was done. This was, you guys were in on this. I got this one from Christina. Dick had asked to bring it up from 10,000 to 13,000, and I guess you guys approved that.
Yeah.
When that position was originally posted, there was a range. And Nick was at the lower end of the range.
Yeah,
But because of the need for the new conservation agent with what we're facing with Bess and all of those other things, Dick had, and I had talked to you guys about this, but I just want everybody in the room to be aware. Dick had asked that could he offer the higher end of the range? And so we now have a conservation agent, which is good. So that explains that.
okay.
Okay. Planning board is flat. Zoning and appeals is flat. Data processing, IT is going from 76,000 down to 55,000. Talk to Christina and
Love that.
I feel comfortable with that. The public buildings is a challenge because I think,
Yes.
we're gonna see some expenses there.
Is that where we're building in that position we talked about, or of a,
I mean, we haven't really done that. Jackie, we've talked about it. I think even as a finance, we talked about it. I had met with the select board, and one of our biggest challenges is the lack of maintenance program for buildings, green spaces, town-owned properties. I just don't know how to, budget for that. Like, are we going to find one company that can do, I think we run into problems when it's piecemeal and
Yeah.
then you don't know who's doing what, and it's like,
absolutely,
so a plan does need to be put in place. We have talked about it. There is money that was voted to be put aside for this building specifically. I think it was
Building assessment.
the building assessment.
oh, yeah, that we didn't
Yeah.
use.
How
much was that? Was
It's
it
50,000. It's 50,
50, okay.
yeah. So I think that if we can all sort of collectively put our heads together and figure out a maintenance program for the town, I think that,
Are you thinking hiring a company or hiring an individual?
I think it could go either way. I think we
Mhm.
have to really see what is out there, what's available to us, what we can afford.
Mhm.
I don't want the town to be paying money for services that aren't really helping us too much, right?
Yeah, but we've definitely realized it is a much needed position. in town.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And
And
there's a lot of things slipping through the cracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there is. So
So-
to answer your question, that hasn't really been built in here, but we do know that there is funding in other
Available.
accounts
Okay,
that if we put our heads together and come up with a plan, the
Okay.
money is there that we can get the ball rolling on some sort of,
Right, and we would have to lay out what money are we spending already
right,
that would go into that,
right,
Correct. Yeah.
so we just have, that homework hasn't been done yet.
right.
That's
Did you have a comment?
I'm assuming there would be some kind of a job description.
Correct, if we
Yeah,
decide.
if we
If it, yeah,
Or-
so if it's an individual, there would be a posted job description. If it's a vendor, right, that does like multiple services, there would be a scope of work. It would, be a bid process type of thing.
Okay,
Yeah, there are companies out there to.
Sure.
do
Yep,
this
So
stuff.
it's not in here,
okay,
no.
That doesn't mean that we're not all aware that the
Right.
finances are
100%.
available somewhere, and when we get there,
okay, okay.
Okay. All right, town reports, no big change there, really. To speak
Excuse
of.
me.
Okay? You guys still with me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, public safety. Police department is increasing. Now, that may be less because we never got a response back from them, right?
I'm still waiting.
I put the 3% in there because I hadn't heard.
Still waiting to hear back from, I wanna call him,
Chester?
yeah, I always wanna call him Chester, is it Don?
Don,
Yeah.
Don Chester?
Don,
I have not received the signed copy of the MOU for shared services. I mean, we had that meeting months ago.
yeah,
Shocking.
So,
The, so I put in the 3% just in case. But it could be less.
I can reach out to, John and I can't be, I'm not gonna say his last name right,
Okay.
on the Chester Select Board and
Okay.
let him know that we're not getting what we need from Chester, and he will be on top of that. Just add it to my list. Okay, sorry, Baldessari.
The next large increase is really with the fire department. From talking to Adam, he says that the equipment costs and repairs are increasing substantially.
Okay,
There's no, let's just say there's no presentation or anything that says that, but that's what he's saying. Now, he originally asked for, I guess, the 79,000.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, that's a very large increase. Somehow or another, we've got to get people to start. It's not, we're a small town, but it's not really a small town in some cases. When you see the money that's being spent.
yeah, so
You know,
you're
would
looking
you
for
write
some
a check
data to
at-
back that?
What's that?
You're looking for data to back that?
I'm
Yeah,
looking for something
Yeah.
sometimes, and I'm not always seeing it,
okay,
right? So, we would want to, just keep on top of that. That's a lot of money,
okay,
right? He did come in and ask for the 20,000 that you guys approved
Mhm.
for the training program.
yep,
Again, no data to back it up.
And I would just like to say, does he have a plan? Like, okay, so it's approved, but what is the plan?
For how it works.
How it works, yeah.
Yeah.
Is he gonna get it all set up with the accountant and treasurer to make sure that somebody's getting their check? How is it working is my question.
So
I
let's
haven't
put-
seen a plan.
let's put him on an agenda and ask him for that information,
For both of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll keep it in the budget. You
Yeah.
can keep it in the budget, doesn't mean he's spending it.
Cause at this point, it's going to the floor, it'll be voted on, and then if it goes through, so it would be a meeting after annual. And just ask them to come to select board and just provide some data, on both of those, and then information on the plan for training.
Again, that could be one of the department meeting things,
Correct, yeah,
right?
yeah, that's a good point.
Ambulance went down. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, we also need a
Yeah, right.
representative for that too.
Building inspector. Jason didn't come in.
He did.
Did he come in?
Yep.
He requested a 3% increase.
Mhm,
His actual that we put was 2.5%.
so pretty close.
Do you want to keep it at 2.5%?
He requested 3, and your thought is because,
We're keeping with our standard.
yeah, then 2.5 is fine.
Okay.
That's fine, is that fine with you?
It's fine.
Okay. All right, next page. All right, now we're down to civil defense. Now, this, I'm gonna have Kelly remove it. It was on there, but I'm not sure why. I don't think we have a budget for civil defense.
Okay, yeah, I
There
don't,
was
that
$100
sounds new,
on there last year, but emergency management, basically.
yeah,
But it is something you guys want to think about. Is there something that you need for emergency management?
mm,
Whether it's training, whether it's, what's that team coming up with, right?
Is this water,
No,
$100 for the water that we had to
Didn't-
bring into
Didn't
town?
we have an emergency management trailer filled with stuff?
I don't know.
It used to be out front here.
Well, you guys have to tell me whether or not,
not right now, we don't have anything, but I think going forward is definitely something to think about and see if, a team training would be great, it's just that we switch positions so often.
And also Maya offers a lot of free training as far as
True,
emergency
yeah.
management
so
stuff
maybe
too.
there doesn't,
But
hey,
I
we
don't
don't
know.
want to create a budget that we don't need.
No,
Right,
All
right.
we got enough going on.
yeah,
Animal control, flat, forestry. Forestry.
ash
The
trees.
forestry is Mark, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Did he come in?
Yes, this year he came in, last year he did not.
Last year.
Okay.
Because he didn't come in last year, he didn't get his 20,000 for
Mhm.
ash tree removal.
Mm-hmm,
This year he came in and he asked for 40,
mm-hmm,
we're giving him 20.
okay,
You good with that?
You're giving
what did he have to
one for-
support it? Did he have
Nothing.
nothing?
His reasoning is, well, I didn't get the 20 I was supposed to get last year, so give me 40 this year. But I don't
If we
know.
don't have data to back that
Again, what
up.
is-
Well, it's the ash tree, it's the invasive
Yeah.
species,
Yeah.
it's that, so
But
that's,
data in terms of like, there are this many
Absolutely.
trees and
Yeah,
it's gonna cost this much.
no, yeah, there's
Yeah,
no,
then
Right.
the 20 is fine.
Operationally, there needs to
Personally.
be a plan, right?
Yeah.
right,
The regional and vocational, as Christina said, we didn't have actual vocationals yet.
Okay,
But, you know, we're close. We bumped it up a little bit, so we should be there. It went from 1.5 million to 1.6 million, maybe a little bit less, right?
Okay.
1.569, 162.
are we funding, or is it just somewhere else?
so that's just Gateway,
That's just
Gateway is
Gateway.
dead on accurate,
Yeah.
that number from Gateways, the
Right.
vocational ones are different. Um,
Okay.
Are we funding the, education stabilization? Is that somewhere else?
stabilization,
somewhere
yeah,
else.
somewhere else.
Okay.
All right, so then going down to construction maintenance, which is our highway,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Highway, what is driving the increase with highway? Fuel increases, we talked about the other day, very concerned about that. I'm still very concerned about that.
Mm.
You know, I went through the data, the sign-in sheets.
Mhm.
Remember, we did that last year, we did it this year. I'm not seeing any indication why this is going up. All of that, what they do is they sign in for fuel now,
Yep,
and when I went through that packet, there wasn't a break. In other words, it went January, February, March, April, May, June,
Yeah.
July, and the dates were lined up and everything.
hmm
Why would they be over $13,000
and it
in
didn't
fuel
have
costs?
more than last year, we didn't use
I didn't
more
look at-
fuel than last year.
Oh yeah, this is definitely more than last year.
And
It's
the
like almost
cost,
a quarter's worth of fuel.
When Ray came in, he said because he's got the guys out on the road more.
Yeah.
However, that's only been 3 months.
yeah, but that's not, that shouldn't be,
Is Rainey's money bumping this
This
up
is
as well?
Rainey's, right.
Yeah,
Right, I don't know,
and he'll be gone, right?
well, no,
Isn't
this isn't, no, this
Yeah.
is FY 26, so.
he- Right,
he's
so
not
he's
in
out
there.
of 26, yeah.
I don't know, all I'm saying is we need to get
Now,
it locked up.
are the fuel consumption is up or the price for the fuel
Price
is
is
up?
not up.
Yeah, it's off of a contract, so the price that we pay is locked in, it's the consumption that is for some
Okay.
reason.
Yeah,
have we built in anything to fund, upgrading the system for a better, we haven't gotten
No.
quotes or anything for that yet.
If you wanna put something in stabilization, we could do that at the end, that would be
Yeah.
capital expenditure,
And
right?
that would be something, did highway submit any capital?
Yes,
Okay, so, but that might be something to add to the list.
right. But until then, we need to do something.
Okay.
Just, you know, look, it may not be anything. It could be that they are out there more, but $12,000 in fuel that they just asked for is a lot of money
Mhm.
to get us the next 3 months. So anyway,
Mary has her hand raised.
oh, Mary,
There's no breakdown on the salaries for highway, but yet there are breakdowns for other departments.
they're in their charts. They're in here in their unions, so they're, meaning I have all the breakdowns for them. Would you want to see them here? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
The highway
You
is
got 'em for
union,
other
so it's
departments, you
it's a
got 'em
little
for
Yeah,
other
with
departments.
union, you usually don't put that stuff out. But
yeah,
I mean, you can,
It's all
you can
public
see, yeah, you can see the you have the contract, don't you?
yeah, so I don't think it needs to be in I mean, it doesn't need to be in here, it's there, it's
Yeah.
available, it's
Okay.
public knowledge, it's not.
Well,
yeah.
if somebody asks from the floor
Right,
at
right,
the
right, I
annual
think you're
town
right.
meeting or the mini town meeting,
I can put it in
there's an
there.
answer.
I have it, so I can put it in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. We are gonna put, I did put $43,000 in there for the certifications. So if the highway guys do get certified, guys and gals, if there were gals in there,
Yeah,
that we have the money in there for that, because they
Okay.
would get a bump from the union contract.
so that's in the
That's
salary,
in the
okay,
budget, yes.
great,
It's not the money to pay for the certification, it's the money, should they get the
should they get an
certification.
increase in pay? Are we really buying new garage doors again? I feel like we buy new garage doors every year.
Where's that?
Sorry, I feel like that's on tangent, but I
Highway
feel like we're
garage
constantly
maintenance.
buying garage doors.
That's,
Yeah,
Am
I've
I
seen that
crazy?
recently. No, I mean, I'm obviously haven't even been here a full year, but I've seen
Yeah.
that where just recently, I think it was last year, was the garage doors in a ramp or something.
And there
garage
was an
doors
issue
ramp.
with that because we
Yes.
just bought garage.
now
doors.
didn't we do garage doors on the fire department also?
I believe when I saw it was under
It was,
highway.
it's been highway. I feel like this is the third
Yeah.
round, but okay.
Cause I know they had a problem at the fire department.
They got lots of.
I don't
problems
recall
over
one at the highway department.
Again,
Okay, sorry.
Again, that's a great question to put on your department meeting,
Yeah,
right? The only thing I wanted to point out that was a little bit concerning
there. Mhm.
with the, even though on the budget itself, the snow and ice removal, we didn't increase because Rainey had said, no, leave it flat.
Mhm.
Because they can go over on that account,
yeah,
Mhm.
right? That doesn't mean that they can just
Go crazy.
go crazy.
Yeah.
That account is $56,000 over budget right now.
And that includes labor.
I'm sorry, for
parts.
for winter?
Yeah.
Why?
Impossible.
I'm just telling you.
No, I know, I'm not questioning you, I just,
I'm just,
Somebody,
well,
sounds like
there
somebody
was,
posted something incorrectly.
Was that because,
Consistent.
oh, I think that they had explained that
they did,
there
Yeah.
when
because.
when
there was
Rainey
stuff
got in
that-
there,
Yep,
well, it was
nothing
like
was,
stocked, yeah, I know that
nothing was
he's,
stocked, so they did have to like restock everything.
but 56,000, you're saying?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Does that include
Let me
labor
see.
too?
what's that?
Does that include labor?
It shouldn't.
That's just sand.
So there's
salt.
winter highway fuel, winter highway plows, blades, nuts, bolts, winter highway sand and salt, and then a different line item for winter snow, ice, labor. So anytime you're paying a person, it has
It's
to
all
be
separate,
a
okay.
different account.
Here it is, I mean, it says. Snow and ice removal, 56,000.
So he's just saying,
30,000 in the highway plow blades, nuts and bolts. 26,000 in salt and sand, over.
Basically, the state's gonna ask you why.
Yeah.
That's basically what's gonna happen. And I don't know why.
Did we stock up at salt and sand at the end of the season?
we bought sand and salt earlier. When, what's his name?
Dave.
Dave, yeah,
well,
thank you.
is
Well,
that
what I'm
also
saying-
in the contract? Don't we buy that via,
No, I think that was
No.
a stock up that they did.
Yeah, I don't think we're on contract for salt and
I
sand.
mean, I don't wanna
Should
take
be.
us off track.
They order as they
sorry, I'm
need.
sorry.
Sorry.
I don't wanna take us off track.
Yeah,
because
no,
that's
sorry.
This year,
Okay,
but what I'm saying is that we can't assume another 56,000 next year.
Right,
correct, yes.
yes.
Okay, so
So if the problem was corrected this year,
if
with-
it was corrected this year and they don't have to, right,
So we
Right.
really need to keep
so
an
we
eye
have
on
to
that.
keep an eye on it because if the,
Yeah.
you know, it's not something,
So they should be well stocked this year
yeah. But this is another,
for next year.
I
I'm
still
throwing
don't
out
see the
another example.
56,000. I see 62,000.
Cause she said it's broken down. It was 30 and 1 and 20.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
The,
oh, all right, yeah,
this is another example of, and I remember of no real plan,
Correct.
right? When someone comes in and says, I need money, I get it, you can go over, but how far can you go over,
Mm,
right? Especially in this account, because this is the only account you can go
Yeah.
over, right?
And so this year, there's 3
That's
hands in
serious
that
accounts.
pot of highway supers. So hopefully next year with 1, we're gonna start to see some consistency in there.
We just gotta make sure Ray knows that he can't go.
That this is not a regular
Right,
thing. Yeah.
okay.
so the total highways, snow and ice removal was 109,000.
This year,
Yeah,
no,
this is for next year.
correct, but this year we're at like 170. Because this is what was budgeted, not what was spent.
Right.
Okay,
All right, sorry, go ahead, continue.
Okay.
Oh,
So
this
we're
is the
through
real
the
troublemaker.
construction stuff.
yeah,
All right.
I don't get any complaints from my customers.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
You
So-
complain, you know where you're going.
On page 7, BOH is pretty much the same,
Okay,
right?
Yep.
The tipping costs have gone up a little
Okay.
bit. Then we have the nurse,
Yep,
Margit
Margaret,
yes, Margaret was looking for, she requested 3,000 versus her normal, which would have been. I don't know if she's stipend or what she is. Anybody know?
I don't think she knew.
Well,
either.
she's listed as salaries, wages, but I can,
Right, but
So-
I don't know if she submits hours, like,
yeah, I'm not sure, but let me see.
so she,
So she
we went up
also,
14%? Or
No.
we, no, we
no,
didn't.
we're increasing it to 2.5%, that's it.
Yeah, but it's minimal amount, it's like $300.
It's a minimal amount.
Yeah.
A lot of these are minimal amounts.
Yeah.
But we're keeping them all.
Yeah, no,
2.5.
2.5, yeah,
Okay.
agreed.
Veterans benefits, again, there's the 10,000. I've been
Yep.
doing, working with the finance team for now, what, almost 3 years,
Mhm.
and I've never seen a dime come out of that account.
well, that's because they've all aged out.
Is that what?
No, so are they, well, I guess that's a question for another day, but are they receiving their benefits? I
So
hope that
what
they
I can
are.
explain to you how it's been explained to me
Mhm.
is that every municipality is given this set amount of money. And then, in our case, it's Joe Henning who is appointed, to oversee this.
Yeah,
And if a veteran in town has an emergency need, a fuel bill, a medical bill, something of that nature, that's what that money is for.
That's what I
So I guess people aren't applying,
Either people aren't applying, I can't
Or they
speak
don't
to,
need-
No, I think that's right.
okay.
but my other question would be,
Do they know?
do they know, is Joe Henning making this knowledge available? Because I think if people knew that they would be applying for fuel assistance and medical bill, I mean, that's.
I don't know, that I can't speak to. All I know is
So-
that that is what that is for, and there's very strict reporting
my
that needs
question
to be
would
done
be-
with that money. Because it comes from the state.
So my question would be, what is, Joe doing to make this?
That's a
Available.
department level meeting.
Okay, yeah,
right?
correct, yeah.
Question. He did not, did he show up?
No, yeah,
Well, he's stipend, so he would stay the same anyway, and that 10,000 is nothing we have any control over.
okay,
Okay, we ready to move on?
yep,
Culture and recreation. Salaries for, this is again a combined number here for salaries. Do you
mhm,
want that broken out for library too? Who makes what?
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay. And that was approved, the increase was approved for Nicole
mhm,
yeah.
to go to a full-time employee
correct.
status, right?
Mhm.
Will the library be open more with her going full-time?
Yes.
Well, it's good.
So that's that,
Okay,
okay? Joanne came down on her recreation budget
what? How
to
dare she?
4,000,
Okay.
and the Memorial Day budget stays the same.
Mhm.
The historical
Commission.
commission is going up slightly. They need to complete inventory with PVPC or risk not getting grants, so.
Okay, so they're up.
So they need a little
to
bit of money
7,000.
there.
Okay,
Employee benefits are definitely going up 10%.
yeah,
So that went from 339 to 387.
okay,
Okay. Insurance bonds, we didn't get the actual number yet, but I'm estimating 6%.
okay,
No, and we did get the number because it was estimated based on.
Maya.
Yeah.
okay,
So the total liability at this point for expenses is 4.7 million. Okay,
mhm,
and usually you do a calculation for just subtracting what.
okay,
Go to the next page. These are all the transfers.
mhm,
We have to fund OPEB,
yep,
remember? We gotta get up to what, 150,000, I think it was?
Yes.
We put 50 in this lot this year, so we'll do this one more year,
Okay.
probably.
Yes.
We put the library, request of 185,000 in, that was requested a couple weeks ago at
Yeah.
the town meeting. We're staying with, I don't know what, a stabilization, just the,
I think that's the general stabilization.
yeah, I do too, general fund. Building stabilization, education stabilization. And last year you could see the transfer there for the 87,000 that we talked about.
and then coming back,
That's not
Or,
should happen
okay,
again.
no, okay.
That's it.
Looks fantastic.
Any questions?
No, thank you guys for all the work you did. last night.
On the council on aging, I asked Margaret what her salary was several weeks ago, and she said she was getting $4,600. And this says,
I don't know. That's what she came in with.
26.
Maybe she meant at that point that she was at $4,600. When you talk to her. I don't know, because it's not, that's not the
Because
figure
some
we
of the
have.
money that the council on aging gets comes directly from the state
Yeah.
Oh,
per person over 60 years old. And then we have money in the budget for 27, so
this is
she
what
must be getting
did,
money from the state too.
probably.
Well, no, she has a grant, close out grant.
Yeah, so we had talked about this, I think you remember, Mary, right?
Vaguely.
Yeah, so I don't know that she uses any of that money to pay herself,
No, she doesn't.
no,
She can't.
yeah.
They're very specific about what she
Yeah.
can use
Those,
it for.
the use, yeah, the
The
usage
state
of
money.
that, yes,
Right.
yep. Maybe she just didn't wanna tell you how much she makes, Mary.
Well, I suggested that she ask for 16,000 for the year.
Oh,
And she
Mary.
said, in your dreams.
Mary,
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, so the last page. I put it here, which really isn't.
The capital
really
budget?
tiny, right?
Yeah.
You know, the finance committee has never looked at capital budgeting as being their responsibility.
Yeah.
That was always done by the TA. Okay? So in the past, I have no clue what Chris Dunn had done with you guys when it came to capital budgeting. But Christina and I had spoke, and we have the capital budget that was put together by, I don't know who they were.
From what I can tell, in the past, Chris sort of farmed this out and obviously sat down with whoever it was. It may have been PVPC, I'm not quite sure, but of something up to that nature. And the capital plan that was put together was set to cover, what is it, 2024 to 2028?
Yeah.
So within that capital plan, it lays out things, I don't know, it may be in list of priority, I'm not 100% sure, but it's just things, large expenses, right, that the town needs, could improve upon,
Mhm.
or should budget for moving forward.
Right.
We have checked some of those things off the list since this plan has been put together.
Yeah.
Other things we have not,
Mhm.
and this is
Most have
based on
been
that.
pushed.
Yeah.
Most have been pushed.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took what was in that plan,
Mhm.
added what people are looking for
Okay.
this year.
Mhm.
Some of them are repeats. They
Mhm.
were already in the plan. So it just demonstrates we're pushing things out,
Mm.
right? So there are a couple things that I think we do want to talk about that should go in.
Okay.
Okay. One is the $10,000 for the cabinet. The fireproof cabinet,
For what?
for the fireproof cabinet,
Or where?
for
Our
our,
clerk's office.
the
We
town clerk's
need
office.
this.
Well,
And
I'm bringing it up because they have come in with $30,000 a couple of years ago, and they keep going down and down and trying to consolidate as much as they can.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's up to you, but we need to determine if we're gonna do that, so that's something you guys need to talk about.
Okay.
I think the other thing
Well,
was, didn't you
excuse me,
ask?
We agreed that they do need that.
Yeah, we did
Okay.
agree.
Yes. So we
Our
recommend-
recommendation is to do that,
Yes.
right?
Okay. So we've come down from what was your first request?
Well, there was
Well, we
there
want
$10,000 of
$100,000.
There's, I believe that they're $10,000 a piece, and you wanted three.
No,
Oh, well,
no.
that's what the capital plan had said. I'll just tell you that. So
We're
that may have
getting-
been a mistake.
So you're just looking for the one.
Under $10,000,
Okay.
depending on.
Is that in
which
here?
Vendor we use, whether
Yeah,
it's
it's in
WC Mason or Staples, or we cannot buy direct from the vendor. We have to
Oh,
go
okay.
through a third party.
This is a small writing and
I
I have my
know,
contacts in, so
I
I
didn't,
apologize.
Do you want my reader?
No, they don't work with my contacts, Jackie. Okay,
Huh?
Peters,
so where is that under on here? Is it up, no,
Second page,
second page,
Which one is it, right? Oh,
okay. Town clerk, I see it, down from 30 to 10, got it.
Right,
Okay, grant
Okay.
funding or free cash is the question?
right. Here's where I'm at with this, after going through it and kind of understanding what's in the original. You guys need to absorb this and decide what you wanna do, right? And if that may mean putting more money into stabilization, so we could use it.
And by absorb it, you mean all
For
of the
this
things.
document, that basically says, these are all the things that are on the list.
So I'm looking at the capital plan for 2026 at this point. Request. Or no, I'm looking at capital plan middle, because that's what you're recommending. Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
The middle, I'm looking at the
Capital
middle.
plan requests. Well, I remember I took some from what was in the capital plan that was put together, and then others were people requested this year.
Okay, because I noticed, for example, like for water, those that didn't carry over to the capital plan are like those 18, 75, and 17. Are those things that you're not recommending?
We didn't go through this to recommend.
Okay,
any
you
of it.
didn't. So
No.
Right.
I'm just what is the difference between the capital plan
Okay.
request and then the
The
middle?
capital plan request is what folks came in with their documents to us
Okay,
and said, this is what we need
okay,
for 2026. The capital plan
yeah,
was what was in the formal capital plan
I
that was
understand.
put together.
okay.
Okay.
And so the actual plan's not done because we have to,
Right.
okay,
Correct.
I understand.
And I would just caution that going through the capital plan myself was giving me just a lot of anxiety because a lot of this is really wishful thinking, like, oh, grants. And
Yeah.
the capital plan is not gonna be fully funded by grants.
Correct,
Right. So,
okay.
you know, how you guys need to talk amongst yourselves and decide. how you
Right.
wanna manage this.
Right.
I will say, I just wanna point out for you guys, you'll see the 400,000 here for
Yes.
this engine. Now, not last year, but the year before, it was an article at town meeting and it was voted on and approved for the treasurer to pursue a loan in the amount of $400,000 for this specific, I believe they call it a pumper, if I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The reason Adam hadn't moved forward with it when it was voted on at the time was because it was unclear what direction the fire department was going in.
Yeah.
If there is no new fire department build, he would have to order a custom fire pumper
Yeah.
to be able to fit into
Which
the
costs
garage, which costs significantly more.
Well,
So because when it was voted on, he wasn't sure what type of truck they would need. Never moved forward with a borrowing.
Yeah,
But I spoke with the attorney and I spoke with Kelly, and since it was voted on, it's still, you don't have to re-vote on it.
mhm.
So it doesn't have to be another article. But so when you see it here, just know that, you know,
That's a borrow and it's.
that's a
Yeah.
borrowing
Okay.
that has already been voted on.
Okay,
Right. And he needs to know pretty quick, because he
Yes.
made it appear as though, you know,
okay.
there's a long
Yeah, few
lead
years,
time
yeah.
in buying one. So he's gotta decide. But that's
So-
his job to come in and say,
yeah.
we gotta make a decision.
So do we have to have a good idea about this before the annual town meeting or not? Because this is spending that we will do out of free cash once we know what our free cash is?
Right.
Okay, so this is not something we need to know before.
Well, it depends. If
What do you
you're,
think?
you may have to vote on a potential borrowing, right? So we don't have enough, so say you wanna tell the highway department, yeah, you can have $225,000 for a John Deere grader. The source of it listed here is a non-excluded debt, so. You
So
would,
you need us to, if we want a warrant article on the, if we want something on the warrant,
yes, even if you're funding it with free cash, still gotta be on the warrant.
got it,
Right.
okay. So then we do need to look through this. I mean, I want it all.
You're not gonna get it.
I know, I just.
You mean
Well,
Santa Claus died?
Oh, we'll record it, TJ.
I mean,
Okay,
let's step back for a second though, because you also have the challenge of you've got loans that are gonna, you know, we've got the library we're thinking about,
yeah,
firehouse we're thinking about, we've got these things that
Mhm.
may come up this year. So before you go off and make more loans for more stuff, you
Yeah.
gotta know what your strategic
What's
plan is.
correct,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah,
So if there isn't anything, my suggestion would be, if there isn't anything earth shattering that has to be
Mm.
done ASAP, I wouldn't put it on the warrant this time.
so what's the 328 for the,
That was in the original plan,
uh-huh,
and that was an assumption that whoever put that plan together said the yearly payment would be for the firehouse. If it were
Okay.
built.
so that is excluded debt, USDA Community Facilities Fund, CBDG.
Yeah, so a
We're-
lot of
we're not
these
even really near it.
sources are
Okay,
just,
so
they were
don't-
just throwing things out
They're
there. It
just
could
throwing
be
things
from
out,
here, it
okay.
could be from there.
Right. Not to mention where they came up with the 328,000.
Yeah, that's been $403.
Yeah, 28, 328.
So, you know, if you went down,
Yeah, fire is needy.
So that the 200,000 you're seeing next to
Yeah,
the 400 there,
yeah,
I don't know what that necessarily is for. I can tell you, oh no, the brush vehicle's already up there. Okay, never mind. What's the additional 200 for?
is it additional?
you know what, it's not additional. It was
Okay.
he asked for it again,
Okay,
and it was in the original plan.
okay. So you can disregard that.
Yeah, disregard that one. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'd have to go back through these myself and say, if there's some things like, TJ, didn't you ask for a new mower or something for
Yeah.
5,000? You know, there's things that we could do for things that are broken down, you know, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I wouldn't jump to ask for borrowing for hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point until you know what you want to do.
I do think that this, in conversations I had, I'm sorry. I
No,
didn't interrupt.
no, I was growling at the water department.
I do believe there, and Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm gonna refer to your expertise on this. The 185 for library, the raise and appropriate, and I believe I've spoken with Dave about that. I think that does need to be on this warrant, correct?
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
right, we agreed on that,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so that will go on, and the 10,000 for the cabinet is going to be something we can look at out of free cash, so that would need to go on.
Yep.
It was still going to warrant.
It will
It
go
would
on,
go
yeah,
on, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it will be less.
what happened with the,
Nope, don't ask about the vault.
don't ask about the vault?
No, not at this time of night. I'm
I'm
talking
hungry,
about the
TJ.
vault.
Too expensive, was the answer.
Okay. I'll put you in the vault.
You've been trying for years.
I don't know, TJ, really, how much money did you need for it was a little confusing when I was reading your notes, like you need to buy a new,
Yeah, what we do is we, as the mowers
right?
get on in years, like we have one mower now that has 14,000 hours on it. And, they usually recommend changing them around 10,000 hours, so we try and get the most out of it. And, the cost of the mowers now are, getting way up there. And,
Yeah.
the $5,000 will buy us.
Do we need to put that on the warrant?
I don't think so, because usually what we do when we buy equipment, we use a Tiffany account. And,
Okay,
all right, and there's, an expendable amount of interest that we can use without touching the principal.
okay.
So that's what we've been doing for the past 20-something years.
All right, I would like to talk about water really quick. This is the final thing.
Okay, just before we do, those are the only two things we're gonna put on the warrant. We
I'm
s-
assuming so. Was
We
there
just said
anything else that we need
the
to-
library and the cabinet,
Right, because the 400,000 for the truck was already out of warrant.
and anything else we can, if we do a special town meeting, we can do something out of free cash
Right.
and money. No. Okay, sorry, go ahead, water.
All right, so what
Excuse me.
water was brought up here was, they have their list of, you can see, I've got the notes here where it says state grant, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Most of these grants are refundable grants, so that means that they have to have the money up front, right, pay
Mhm.
So
and put away.
what they need to do is they need to set up the account with the accountant in advance, right? And as it's been explained to me, Kelly said that as long as she has all of the paperwork
Mhm.
that outlines the grant, the repayment schedule, all of that, a reimbursable grant can be spent in the deficit. And once, as long as they are responsible and putting in for their reimbursements correctly and documenting it correctly, once that money comes back, you reimburse it. You have to show that you've paid it, right? I guess is my point here. So,
Okay, but you have to have the money up front. Is what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah,
Right?
not the full amount.
No, I understand
Oh,
not the
okay.
full amount. It might
Okay.
be 50,000, it might be 10,000, it might be whatever,
Right,
but they don't have the money
right.
to do that.
That is correct.
So until we really understand what's happening, we can't have a real good discussion about how much money they can put in that account.
Mhm.
So I would not, at this point in time, I wouldn't recommend that the town front that money, is what I'm saying, until we know what's going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of the grants
Would you
that,
agree with that?
Yeah.
like this
Absolutely.
$350,000 above ground storage water tank. This $350,000 is just a study, okay? That's just a study. So the actual project itself is a few $1,000,000. By the time you guys get to where you're comfortable either doing a borrowing or raising taxes to pay for this, that $350,000 study is gonna be obsolete.
Yeah.
So they really need to be reined in on, what they're doing, what their timelines are, there has to be a full plan before you're jumping in and spending X amount of money and
Mhm.
time and everything else.
Right.
Because it's wasteful.
So,
Well, I'm hoping that the 2 audits that we do are gonna help us to really get
get a
an
handle
idea
on
of what's going on. So that we can start to better track that.
okay, doesn't look like there were a lot of changes.
So
within-
it sounds like we're in agreement on everything for budget.
Sounds like it.
So Dave will ask us that on the floor, approval, agreement. That's good.
I just have one quick question, it has something to do with budget. But last year we had a problem with the septic leach field. And we were supposed to have that mowed. Have we contracted someone to mow that?
Oh, TJ, I'm so glad you asked. I
Can we
actually.
adjourn the official meeting?
I
So-
actually had somebody
Yeah.
come up and give me quotes and, then you told somebody it was okay for them to go mow it and somebody else.
I did.
You
You
did,
did do
sir.
So
So,
don't do that again.
So we do have someone that's gonna mow.
well, I was going to have somebody mow it, but, it.
It
somebody
already
else-
got mowed this year too?
No, I don't know about this year. I
Okay.
haven't been up there this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll take it right up, if it
Okay.
isn't mowed, I'll take care of it.
I can certainly ask.
No, we can get someone to bid on it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll do that too.
No,
Because I know that it's particular equipment that can go over because it's stone and,
yeah,
Yeah, well, we
had Ryan bid on it last year, I think.
I don't know who bid on it, I know, Mike and I went up there, we cut all the trees out.
Okay.
Uh-huh. No, this is last year
I
what
know,
we did,
I'm saying
and
going forward.
we chewed it up, we planted grass and that, we just wanted, I just want it to be mowed so that we don't get into that situation again with the roots going into the
Agreed.
leaching field.
Will you
That's-
reach out for bids for that?
I can, does Doug not do that?
No.
Cause he mows that though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he mows the
doesn't mow the
park.
leach field.
Okay, I will,
Ryan Bangle would be a good person to reach out.
Okay.
I think he bid on it last year,
okay.
but then Mike did it. so.
And where does that money come from in the budget?
I don't know.
That comes
That-
from-
that's-
That would be town hall maintenance.
Oh, it's not,
What you
it's
got.
not water.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
town hall
It's the
maintenance.
town hall mowing line,
Yeah.
which is typically underfunded, because around this time of year, there starts to be a lot of mowing, and then all of a sudden we get hit May, June, and then we're real close. So it is that
Well,
line.
Jackie and I had spoken about possibly having a account where we put money aside that is specifically for town-owned property emergencies. So if it's something that we unfortunately could not see coming, but needs to be addressed,
Mhm.
there does need to be some language around what constitutes an emergency.
Like a storm cleanup situation, damage.
Well, we have like MEMA and stuff for
Okay.
that,
Okay.
but I'm talking about, what do we do if part of the roof caves in or starts leaking? We don't have a large, we would have to go to town meeting and take money out of free cash, and it's a big process, right? So, I mean, I think that we'd still have to talk about it, but we had a brief conversation, and I think that it would be something where it's a nominal amount of money, nothing crazy, and that any decision to be made to be spent out of that account would be between the finance committee and the select board.
Mhm.
And so that if something comes up where we need to hire a vendor quickly, or we need to address
Sure.
something that we haven't addressed,
Mhm.
number one, we would know that for the next year moving forward, hey, we need to budget for this, right?
Mhm.
Because this is something that could come up. And number two, we would be able to address it in this fiscal year without having to spend the money and the time going to special town meeting just to get approval
Yeah, that's a good
to
idea.
spend it out of free cash.
Isn't reserve supposed to be for emergencies only?
Reserve is supposed to be
Yes.
for emergencies
Right.
only.
Unforeseen.
Yes.
Which this would fall into that, so we have the ability to increase the reserve number
That's true.
5 to 7% of the budget.
We could do that.
So if we needed to, that would ensure that we're keeping to the same rules that we already have
Mhm.
for the
Yeah.
reserve. We
Could-
cannot, I'm just gonna caution too, don't replenish the reserve. That kind of when we
It's
move-
hard to track then
Well,
after.
not only that, it's there for that purpose to stay, this is what you said you were gonna, budgets are budgets. You stick
mean
to your
a-
budget.
Don't
We
replenish
replenish-
mid-year. We
That's
only do,
correct.
yeah. Okay.
Use it wisely for only emergencies, that's it.
And then leave whatever,
That's
yeah.
right, if something comes, do you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm the one who
Do you
complained
agree with
about it.
that? Yeah. Yes.
Miss Mary?
So, we,
Question? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just don't forget you've got your mini town meeting coming.
Yes,
we'll be ready,
A week from today, right?
I don't wanna look at that.
that's why we did this tonight.
I think.
Sorry.
How much do you want to increase the reserve to?
Uh,
Cause that's gonna change the numbers.
But weren't you talking about something specifically that you wanted to cover with the reserve? I don't know, I thought.
what's the reserve
So,
at now?
well, so my only concern is that reserve, when I say emergency, and I said we would have to talk about what constitutes an emergency, right?
Right.
Reserve is very, they're like, no, it's gotta be an emergency type of thing, right? If that corner of that roof caves, it's not an emergency, it's not like a death, it's not an emergency. I know that we had some things come up this year that were they were very much unforeseen and we had to take care of them. I just don't wanna blur the lines of,
Well, it's already blurred. You remember the skating rink?
Yeah.
Did we take something out of reserve for that?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, God.
and I was like, what?
Why?
Well, we have this week to decide. That's
Yeah.
it,
Okay,
Because I gotta
Well,
the
will you-
numbers kind of add up on themselves. but,
Yeah.
let us know what's currently budgeted for reserve.
45.
45, and then what we can go up to and
But
we can go up to
what we recommend.
quite a bit. We'll never reach the ceiling of what we can go up to, but it can be increased,
And
Okay.
a question of what you wanna do with it.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't want it to become a slush fund. I
Right,
don't
right,
want
right.
people to
No.
say,
Well, to
oh, well,
use,
we have that, so.
That's what it is
Yeah.
now. just-
Yes.
but to use reserve, we still need the select board and the finance to approve.
Correct.
Yeah, so, I mean, we still have,
Oh, there's
Right.
cautions in place
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and with budgeting, no is no.
yeah,
We have to just stick
Yeah.
with no is no.
Yeah.
Unless it's an emergency,
yeah.
we're not taking it out of the reserve.
Mary, did you have a question?
Just wanted to let you know that to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures, a city or town may, before the date when the tax rate is fixed, include in the appropriations for such fiscal year as a reserve fund not exceeding 3% of the tax levy.
3%. What's the date on that? I went out on the internet.
My
and
emergency
saw
clip
that.
bar.
Finance manual, which I assume
This
you've all
counts as
read.
emergency.
Oh,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
To back, front to back,
So
Mary.
should we do it?
Yeah, please.
Thanks for your patience.
So you said not to exceed.
8:23.
What percent?
I
already
did
have a
sitting there
phone
for
call.
you.
Of the levy.
Thanks for yours.
Oh,
I know. Thank you for it.
was she hard to hear still?
Hey.
Was Christina hard to hear? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, sure.
Oh, good.
Great, I just want more than anybody else.
Was that informative?
Very nice. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Well,